In this video, we'll be taking a look at 4 NBA games happening on March 10th, 2026, and providing you with free team picks and total picks for each one of those games, so 8 picks in total. Welcome back to Cash Out Sports. Let's dive right into it. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe and to click the bell icon to get notified as soon as these videos get released so that you have more time to plan out your bets as we provide these videos on a daily basis. I can guarantee that you'll have all the important information that you'll need on these 4 NBA games after fully watching this video. One more thing before we start, if you would like to gain access to our best exclusive sports picks to take your journey to the next level, then check out our Patreon in the link down below, where we offer our best single picks, parlay picks, and much more. Now let's get started. Phoenix Suns vs. Milwaukee Bucks. The Phoenix Suns visit the Milwaukee Bucks on Tuesday at Fiserv Forum in what feels like a spot where one team is quietly settling into a groove while the other is trying to shake off a nagging slump. The Suns just picked up wins over the Pelicans and Hornets and have the Pacers next, and they have now taken 4 of their last 5 games, which tends to calm a locker room and make everybody a little more comfortable with their roles. The Bucks, meanwhile, are wobbling a bit. They lost to the Magic, then bounced back against the Jazz, and they have the Heat on deck, a stretch that has exposed some of their issues on the defensive end even though they have still managed to win 9 of their last 16. It is not awful, but it is not what they expect from themselves. Injury-wise, the Suns are still without Mark Williams and Dillon Brooks, and both Jordan Goodwin and Grayson Allen are sitting in that awkward questionable category that keeps coaching staffs up late thinking about contingencies. The Bucks have ruled out Kevin Porter Jr., with Taurean Prince upgraded to questionable, which helps a bit on the wing if he suits up but does not really change who they are at their core. On paper, the Suns come in with the cleaner recent form, but the uncertainty around Goodwin and Allen does crack the door slightly for a home team that is feeling more urgency to stop the drift. Getting Devin Booker back has brought a different rhythm to Phoenix again, and they look much more like themselves when he is orchestrating and scoring at all 3 levels. The Bucks might welcome Prince back, and that is fine, but it does not really address the bigger problem that has been staring everyone in the face. They are not stringing together stops. They look like a team that can trade buckets for a while but cannot consistently get the key defensive possessions needed against quality opponents. They have allowed 120-plus points in 4 of their last 6 games, and that kind of repeated leak is not something you just hand-wave away. You could absolutely see a scenario where Milwaukee snaps awake at home and grinds out the type of performance their talent suggests, so it is not as if the result is written in stone emotionally. Even so, the group that is playing the better, sharper basketball right now is wearing Phoenix jerseys. With that context, laying just a small number with the side that appears more stable, more confident, and less reliant on wishful thinking feels like taking advantage of a soft price rather than chasing a mirage. As our first pick for this matchup, the Phoenix Suns to win and cover the spread as favorites is our full game side pick. The Phoenix Suns are averaging 112.1 points on 45.3% shooting and allowing 111.4 points on 46.9% shooting. They are hitting 35.9% from beyond the arc and 79.3% from the free throw line, and they are allowing 34.2% shooting from deep while grabbing 43.3 rebounds per game. Those numbers point to a team that can score but often leans into controlled pace, with enough defense to keep opponents from turning every night into a track meet. The Milwaukee Bucks are averaging 111.3 points on 47.8% shooting and giving up 115.5 points on 46.5% shooting. They are knocking down 38.8% of their threes, which is strong, but they sit at just 74% from the free throw line, which occasionally stalls otherwise promising possessions. They are allowing 36.6% shooting from deep and collecting 41.5 rebounds per game, a profile that hints at decent efficiency on offense but some vulnerability in terms of defensive pressure and rebounding volume. When you stack those profiles together, you get 2 offenses that do not necessarily play at an out-of-control pace combined with defenses that, while imperfect, can still influence shot quality and tempo when locked in. If this matchup leans toward half-court sets, with both sides trying to manage mistakes and avoid giving up easy transition chances, the total number of possessions can stay in a more modest range. A slower rhythm late, especially if one side is focusing on squeezing the clock and forcing longer trips, tends to drag scoring down rather than inflate it. Even with a few efficient shooters involved, the blend of measured pace, occasional offensive lulls, and the potential for stretches of tighter defense suggests a scoreboard that lands on the lower side rather than exploding. As our second pick for this matchup, under the projected total is our full game total pick. Toronto Raptors versus Houston Rockets. The Toronto Raptors visit the Houston Rockets on Tuesday at the Toyota Center in a matchup where both teams are trying to prove their recent form actually means something. The Raptors are coming off a loss to the Timberwolves, a big win over the Mavericks, and they have the Pelicans waiting next, and they have still managed to win 11 of their last 19 games, which is not bad for a group still trying to sort out its identity. The Rockets just handled the Trail Blazers, then stumbled against the Spurs, and they have the Nuggets on deck, so their schedule is about to get real in a hurry. They have taken 6 of their last 10, which feels solid, but the inconsistency is still hanging around in the background. Toronto is still without Trace Jackson-Davis and Colin Murray-Boyles, and Jakob Poeltl is sitting in that uncomfortable, questionable category, which leaves their frontcourt depth in a bit of a gray area. Houston has ruled out Steven Adams, Jae'Sean Tate, and Fred VanVleet, so their rotation is trimmed as well, even if the overall structure of how they like to play stays the same. These teams last met back on October 29th, and the Rockets rolled to a 139-121 road win, which is a pretty loud result to have in the rearview mirror when you face the same opponent again. Despite that 30-point statement against the Mavericks in their last outing, the Raptors have not exactly been soaring over the last week and a half. Over their last 6 games, they are just 2-4 straight up, and the other win during that stretch came against a tanking Washington Wizards team, which says a lot about how they fare when the pressure rises. Whenever they see a tougher opponent, they tend to fold a bit under that weight, and that pattern has shown up in recent meetings with the Rockets, where Toronto has just one win in the last 5 head-to-head games. It is hard to consistently win in the modern NBA without a reliable three-point attack, and Toronto has been struggling badly in that department lately. Across their last 5 games, they have made 10 or fewer threes each time, which really tightens the margin for error if the mid-range and paint touches are anything less than perfect. They are also staring at an uphill battle on the glass, and they know it because Houston completely dominated the rebounding battle in that first meeting, finishing with a 53-22 edge. Consistency has not exactly been a close friend to Houston either over the last 5 games. They have basically traded wins and losses, which can be annoying for fans and bettors, but it also shows that the ceiling is still high if they lock in. The next 5 games could be huge for Western Conference playoff positioning, with Denver and the Lakers twice on the schedule over the next 10 days, so they really cannot afford to drift through games like this one against Toronto. KD and company are coming off that rough 145-120 loss to the Spurs, a game where San Antonio held the lead for 96% of the minutes according to ESPN Stats and Info, which is the kind of number that lingers in film sessions. The encouraging part for Houston is that Toronto does not have the same type of mismatch at the center position that the Spurs threw at them, and that one detail alone should make life far more manageable for the Rockets in this spot. It might sound almost too simple, but this matchup really does feel like it will swing on who owns the backboards. Houston has been elite in that area for most of the season, and while they have not looked exactly the same since Steven Adams went down, even without him they should still have the edge against a team like Toronto. If they assert that advantage early and often, everything else gets easier, from transition chances to second opportunities and late-game control. As our first pick for this matchup, the Houston Rockets to win and cover the spread as favorites is our full-game side pick. The Toronto Raptors are averaging 113.6 points on 47.1% shooting and allowing 111.8 points on 46% shooting. They are hitting 34.6% from beyond the arc and 78.3% from the free throw line, while allowing opponents to shoot 34.7% from deep and grabbing 43 rebounds per game. The Houston Rockets are averaging 114.5 points on 47.5% shooting and allowing 109.2 points on 45.6% shooting. They are knocking down 36.9% of their threes and 75.9% of their free throws, while holding opponents to 34.5% shooting from beyond the arc and pulling in a hefty 48.2 rebounds per game. Those numbers paint the picture of two offenses that are efficient enough to keep the scoreboard moving, with Houston just a touch sharper from deep and far more dominant on the glass. Toronto scores at a solid clip and does not completely fall apart on defense, but they are not exactly strangling games, especially when the threes are not dropping. Houston's rebounding advantage means extra possessions, and extra possessions often turn into extra points, even if not every trip is a perfect offensive set. The combination of decent shooting percentages, credible three-point rates, and that big gap on the boards leans toward a game where both teams can get into comfortable scoring rhythms. If the Rockets control the glass again, like they did in the first meeting, they can push pace at times and still generate second-chance looks in the half-court, while Toronto has enough talent to respond whenever it gets into its own offensive flow. All of that together points to a matchup where the overall production on offense should be strong enough to push past a modest scoring expectation rather than staying in a grind. As our second pick for this matchup, over the projected total is our full game total pick. Boston Celtics versus San Antonio Spurs. The Boston Celtics head into Frost Bank Arena on Tuesday night to take on the San Antonio Spurs in a meeting of two teams that have been rolling lately. Boston is coming off wins over the Mavericks and Cavaliers and has the Thunder on deck, and the Celtics have taken 18 of their last 24 games, which says plenty about their current level. San Antonio is hardly cooling off either. The Spurs just knocked off the Clippers and Rockets and will see the Nuggets next, and they have won 20 of their last 24, so their confidence at home is going to be sky high. On the injury front, the Celtics have ruled out Nikola Vucevic again, and they are monitoring Peyton Pritchard, who is listed as questionable. The Spurs have once more ruled out Harrison Barnes and Mason Plumlee, so both rotations are slightly trimmed but still very familiar at this point. These teams already crossed paths once this season, and the Spurs took that first meeting 100-95 back on January 10th, a low-scoring grind that stayed tight throughout. Since then, both sides have piled up wins, which only adds more intrigue to this rematch and makes it feel like another game that could stay competitive into the fourth quarter. It is a bit unfortunate for Boston that Vucevic is unavailable because his size and skill could have been useful in this matchup, but they do have Jason Tatum in the lineup, and that alone changes the ceiling on both ends. Boston comes into this one with a clear structural edge built around defense. The Celtics remain one of the most disciplined defensive groups in the league, comfortable switching across positions while still protecting the rim and getting out to shooters. That kind of versatility matters a lot against a Spurs team that thrives on rhythm, spacing, and quick ball movement. When San Antonio gets into early offense and freely zips the ball around the perimeter, their efficiency jumps and their shooters look much more comfortable. Boston's pressure is tailored to mess with that style, forcing tougher catches, slowing actions, and making the Spurs work deeper into the clock. Another major factor is Boston's offensive ceiling. The Celtics have multiple players who can create high-level offense, so they are able to answer scoring bursts instead of simply absorbing them. In matchups where both teams can put points on the board, the side with more reliable shot makers usually owns the crucial late possessions. Boston has several options it trusts to take and make those shots. They also tend to perform well in tightly contested games where execution becomes the deciding factor. They are comfortable slowing things into half-court situations, then leaning on efficient scoring options to give themselves a stable offensive baseline. When they really get into a groove, their three-point shooting becomes a major weapon, and few teams are scarier from beyond the arc when Boston is dialed in. The Spurs deserve respect as home favorites since they have been on a serious run and they generally play their best basketball in front of their own crowd. Still, the value tilts toward the Celtics and the points because they have been playing at a similarly high level and sit at 38-25-1 against the spread this season. With Tatum back on the floor, Boston has started to look like the possible team to beat in the East again, and that is not the profile of a group that will be catching many underdog tags. They have simply been too strong to ignore when getting free points, especially now that their top star is fully in the mix again. The blend of defense, offensive upside, and top-tier talent gives Boston a real chance to control stretches of this game and position itself to come away with the result. Taking the bucket with that package in your corner is hard to pass up. As our first pick for this matchup, the Boston Celtics to cover the spread as underdogs is our full game side pick. The Boston Celtics are averaging 114.6 points on 46.6% shooting and allowing 107 points on 44% shooting. They are knocking down 36.3% of their threes and hitting 79.4% from the free throw line. They are allowing opponents to shoot 36.1% from deep and pulling in 46.4 rebounds per game, which gives them a strong base on the glass. The San Antonio Spurs are putting up 118.5 points on 47.8% shooting and conceding 111.9 points on 45.3% shooting. They are shooting 35% from beyond the arc and 78.4% at the line. They are allowing 35.6% from three and grabbing 46.7 rebounds per game, so both teams are fairly even on the boards. Those numbers set the stage for an interesting scoring environment. Boston's defense is sturdy enough to keep opponents below their usual efficiency, even when facing a team like San Antonio that loves to push pace and lean on flow. The Celtics' ability to contest both at the rim and on the perimeter can nudge shooting percentages down just enough to matter over 4 quarters. San Antonio's offense is productive, but it can become more streaky when forced into tougher looks and fewer easy runouts. On the other side, Boston scores well but does not always play at a breakneck tempo. They are comfortable working possessions, hunting mismatches, and finding high-quality attempts instead of rushing early shots. That style naturally trims a few possessions from the game, especially in stretches where both teams settle into half-court battles. The Spurs are capable of big scoring nights, but they are also facing a defense that can slow their rhythm and limit second-chance chaos. With both teams rebounding at similar levels and neither side completely sacrificing defense for offense, the overall flow can lean toward a steady, controlled game rather than a wild shootout. A handful of longer possessions, more contested jumpers, and fewer clean transition looks can quietly pull the total output down. Even with talented scorers on both sides, the combination of Boston's defensive backbone and a slightly more measured offensive approach from both teams points toward a result where the total number of points lands on the lower side of expectations. As our second pick for this matchup, under the projected total is our full game total pick. Chicago Bulls versus Golden State Warriors. Books are treating this like a simple story of a big-name home team against a young visitor that is still trying to prove it belongs in these spotlight games. Public perception leans hard on history and branding, not so much on how these two groups actually look possession by possession right now. The home side still carries that aura of a dynasty, the old idea that if they are in their own building, the game should tilt to them by default. The visiting side, in contrast, gets tagged with every underdog label in the book, even when the gap on the floor is a lot thinner than the gap on the betting board. The schedule tells a very different tale. The home team is coming off a stretch of tight, emotional battles, the kind of games that steal a little bit of energy from your legs and a little bit of focus from your brain. Travel stacked on top of close contests can turn the fourth quarter into a mental marathon, especially when rotations lean on veterans who have to shoulder both usage and leadership. The visitors, on the other hand, just had a cleaner window to reset, watch film, and walk into this one with a more straightforward focus. That kind of contrast does not show up in a box score, but you feel it when late clock possessions get a little slower or closeouts land a half step short. Stylistically, the home side is good, but it has not been some unstoppable machine. The numbers say they outscore opponents, sure, yet they do it in a way that feels more grindy than overwhelming, more like a team that edges ahead rather than runs away. Games often settle into that middle ground where they are better, but not so much better that you want to trust them to win by a wide margin against any opponent with a pulse. Honestly, that is exactly the kind of profile that can look impressive on paper while still being frustrating if you keep asking it to win by comfort rather than just win. The visitors play with a very different energy. They push the tempo, lean into chaos, and play with the kind of fearless confidence you see from a group that is still writing its own story. Young legs, quick decisions, and a willingness to run can turn every rebound into a chance to chip away at a margin. Even when they fall behind, their style keeps the door open for late-game surges, quick 6-0 or 8-2 bursts that suddenly make a so-called blowout feel like a one-possession sweat. That kind of volatility is a headache for anyone laying points and a gift for anyone catching them. There is also the human side of this matchup. A home favorite with a proud history can sometimes feel the weight of expectation, especially in front of a crowd that has been spoiled by big wins and big moments. The visitors get to play a little freer, with fewer eyes expecting perfection and more room to just embrace their strengths and live with their mistakes. Here is the thing, when you combine a slightly over-respected favorite, a rested and relentless opponent, and a style that naturally keeps games choppy and wild, the value tilts toward the side that is being spotted the cushion, not the side that has to win by a margin. As our first pick for this matchup, the Chicago Bulls to cover the spread as underdogs is our full game side pick. Both teams have the tools to light up a scoreboard, but they go about it in a way that feels more like a race than a chess match. One side still has that familiar perimeter gravity, the kind that stretches a defense and punishes even small lapses with quick threes or cuts to the rim. The other side thrives on tempo and quick decisions, turning defensive rebounds and loose balls into instant fast break chances. The visitors in particular have built an identity around speed and flow. They like early offense, they are comfortable pulling up before the defense is fully set, and they are not shy about trading possessions if it means keeping pressure on the rim and the arc. Defensively, that same pace can be a double-edged sword. Rotations can get scrambled, communication can lag behind the ball, and opponents end up with clean looks simply because the game never slows down. So you get this loop where their style creates more shots for both teams, which in turn creates more swings, more runs, and yes, more points. The home team, even when short-handed or tired, still carries a built-in offensive baseline. The system has been in place for years, with movement, spacing, and rhythm baked into how they play. Role players slide into open shots, secondary creators get the ball in comfortable spots, and the floor is usually wide enough for someone to step into a rhythm jumper. When that kind of structure meets a defense that can be generous, especially in transition or late in the clock, score lines tend to creep upward rather than stall. Fatigue plays a sneaky role here too. Tired legs usually show up on defense first, not offense. Closeouts come a little slower, boxouts get a little softer, and communication on switches slips just enough to give an extra step to a driver or an extra beat to a shooter. On the other side, the more rested team will happily push the pace against that, forcing the issue and making the game feel even more open. It is not that anyone is giving up, it is just that human beings do not guard with the same sharpness on the second or third tough game of a stretch, especially against a team that refuses to walk the ball up. Endgame dynamics matter as well. If the score stays within reach, you get the usual modern NBA script, quick threes, fast fouls, and coaches stretching possessions as much as possible. Those final 2 minutes can sometimes swing 10 or 12 points on their own, which is huge if the flow of the game has already leaned toward offense. Think about how often you have seen a game that felt like a moderate scoring night suddenly erupt in the last 90 seconds. This matchup has that kind of structure where pace, style, and late-game strategy all nudge the total in the same direction. Put it all together, and you have two offenses that can score in bunches. One defense that lives with volatility, another that may be stretched by schedule and effort, and a style of basketball that rewards rhythm, pace, and shot-making from everywhere on the floor. That cocktail usually does not produce a quiet, slow, low-scoring grind. It produces a game where the scoreboard operator stays busy. As our second pick for this matchup, over the projected total is our full game total pick. That's all for now, so if you have any other games you would like reviewed, then leave a comment down below with the game you would like analyzed, subscribe to our channel, leave a like on this video, and we'll get to it as soon as we possibly can. We would also love to hear your opinion on the picks presented to you in this video, whether you agree or disagree with them, so leave a comment down below and do let us know.